Hey, what's going on, y'all? Question. When it comes to your stock portfolio, what all are you invested in? Are you a dividend investor or are you growth focused? Are you a hedge fund investor? Do you put your money in real estate investing trusts with a focus on commercial real estate and hospitals? Or are you a day trader because you love the adrenaline rush of winning it big and then losing it all in about a 30-second span? Or did you ignore the advice of everybody and put all your money into BitConnect because you know it's not a scam?
No. That's a scam.
It's a scam. Now, I'm sure there's a few of you who can answer these questions easily. However, I'm also sure that there's some of you looking at me crazy as if I'm standing up here in my underwear. And for those of you who find that enticing, hit me on my OnlyFans. I'm just kidding. I don't have an OnlyFans yet. Now, but seriously, investing in the stock market can be very complicated, and it could stop a beginner in their tracks. However, there has to be a simpler way to do this, right? I mean, we can give our money to active managers, but at the same time, how do we know that they'll be able to get the type of profits we're looking for on a consistent basis? There has to be a more simple and effective way, right? Well, according to John Bogle, there isn't just a simple way, there's the way. The creator of Vanguard in 1974 and the world's first index fund in 1975, John Bogle has lived his life preaching the index fund since its inception until its untimely death in 2019. However, it doesn't go without merit. With seasoned investors like Warren Buffett, J.L. Collins, and others all praising the index fund for its simplicity and its historical profits, it's not too far-fetched to say that John Bogle was a true stock market mogul. #bars. However, when it comes to his book, The Little Book of Common Sense Investing, can he really persuade us to invest in index funds in an objective, non-biased way? Or is this just another way to get us to invest in Vanguard and put our money into his baby, the index fund? Well, hopefully I can answer that question for you today. Hi, my name is Nick, and in this book review, I'm going to go over some of the key premise points discussed within the book. I'm going to give you some of my main takeaways, whether positive or negative, all while referencing the data, graphs, and chapters within the book. And then finally, I'm going to give you my suggestion on if I thought it was a good read and whether you should continue reading this book during your investor journey. Now, before we begin, I would like to ask you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, this is my review on Jack Bogle's The Little Book of Common Sense Investing. That's not very little at all. Now, when it comes to index funds over active funds, Bogle's points comes down to two factors: cost and humans' inability to consistently beat the market. You see, an index fund is a group of funds that are made to match what the market does on a yearly basis, and an actively managed fund has a portfolio manager buy and sell stocks on a consistent basis to try to beat the market. The problem is that humans historically haven't been very good at beating the market. Case in point, the S&P 500, which is the very first index fund that was ever created, tracks the top 500 companies within the United States. Since that time, there was over 300 mutual funds that existed. Now, only about 74 of those mutual fund companies exist, and only 2 of those were able to consistently beat the market during that time, as referenced in Chapter 10. This is why Bogle believes that the best investing strategy is to buy and hold in a low-cost index fund, whether it's the S&P 500 or the total stock market index. Allow compound interest to do its job by consistently reinvesting your earnings in your dividends, and before you know it, you'll be wealthy. When you put your money in an actively managed account, if that account does not beat the market, you're going to lose out on cost. Case in point, let's look at Exhibit 7.1 as shown in Chapter 7. Here we see 2 funds, an index fund and an active fund, that both made the same amount of money in a given period of time. However, because of cost, your net profits are about $20,000 less than what you would have gotten if you would have invested in that index fund. Costs can really hamper your account. Now, throughout the book, Bogle touches on 3 main costs that can affect your portfolio: expense ratio, taxes, and what he calls speculation costs. However, the most important out of all these is expense ratio, which is the amount that it costs to manage your portfolio. Now, see, since an index fund is a more passive approach to investing, it doesn't cost that much. The average index fund costs about 0.1%. However, since somebody is actively managing your account in an active fund, the average cost for that account is about 2%. And that 2% can really be devastating if that manager cannot consistently be able to beat the market. However, whether they can beat the market on a year-by-year basis or not, you're still going to have that cost to pay. The next cost that Bogle touches on is taxes, which is something that really goes under the radar. See, what a lot of people don't realize is while their active manager is buying and selling all these stocks, each stock that's sold has a capital gains tax that is going to be put on it. And once again, if that fund manager cannot consistently beat the market over time, year after year, the taxes are going to eat up in your profit margins. The last cost that Bogle goes over is speculation cost, which is the cost of speculating what the market is going to do and selling stocks because of it. See, the job of an active manager is to study what the market is doing and buy and sell stocks according to what they think is going to happen in the future. The problem is that none of us know what's going to happen in the future. In chapter 2, Bogle discusses that only about 0.5% of the profits in the stock market has come from speculation. And if your active fund isn't part of that 0.5%, you're missing out on profits. Now, with these three costs coupled together, lagging behind the market because of costs by just a small percentage will really hamper your returns. If we take a look at exhibits 4.1 and 4.2 respectively, we can see that lagging behind the market by just 2% over a 30-year period can lead to losses of over $100,000, or you'll only see about 40% of your profits. In other words, you're putting up 100% of the cash, you're taking 100% of the risk, and you're only getting about 40% of the return. No wonder Bogle believes investing in a low-cost index fund is the way to go. Now, along with cost, another area that Bogle really focuses on is allocation. As discussed in chapters 19 and 20, the allocation of your portfolio or your stock-to-bond ratio is the most important part. Now, although Bogle typically recommends a 60-40 split to most beginners, he does admit that your portfolio allocation is not an exact science. He also says that it comes down to your ability to invest and your willingness to take risks. Age has a lot to play in this also. See, the younger you are, typically the more stocks you can allow in your portfolio since you have time on your side, opposed to when you're in an older age, you should probably have more bonds to reduce the validity within your account. However, even Bogle himself admits that he would keep himself up at night wondering if his portfolio was allocated correctly. And this is when he was in his 80s. He says, truthfully, it comes down to us all being human and we just have to determine our own risk tolerance. So when it comes down to allocating our portfolio and using Bogle words himself in chapter 19, good luck. However, when it comes to allocation, you may want to get a second opinion. A lot of times, this is where an advisor comes into play. Now, although Bogle is against somebody managing your account, he isn't against an advisor. Actually, he believes that can come in handy. However, as referenced in chapter 13, he believes that an advisor should only work on a fee basis and not a commission, and they should strictly be there to help you with your budget, allocation, and not managing your account. So when it comes to an advisor, let them help you with your monthly budget. Have them give you a second opinion on your allocation. But by all means, according to John Bogle, keep their hands off your portfolio, please. Now, as you can see, there was tons of good information given throughout the book. However, here's a few key things that really stood out to me. Now, for starters, here's a few memorable quotes that really stood out to me. When there's multiple solutions to a problem, pick the simplest one. Don't find the needle, buy the haystack, and don't do something, just stand there. These all sound simple enough, right? However, the typical human brain doesn't always work like this, mine included. Now, along with the quotes, here's a couple of things that I found interesting. As read in chapter 10, the average fund manager only lasts about 9 years. Now see, this is very interesting because if we do put our money into an active fund, but the manager isn't going to be there for the long term, how can we really determine what our profits could be? Here's something else. When choosing a brokerage for your index fund, we gotta keep in mind that not all index funds are built the same. Here's what I mean. If we take a look at exhibit 13.2, we see a list of index funds that track the S&P 500. However, they come at a variety of costs. And if we choose one of these higher cost brokerages, it could work against us like an active fund can. So when choosing your brokerage for your index fund, keep that in mind. Here's another thing to keep in mind. This book could be rather redundant at times, and this is where I get to the negatives. You see, with the sheer amount of PDFs available, the written testimonies, it was all too much, right? The PDFs were repetitive. The written testimonies were damn sure repetitive because it was just somebody else telling me the same thing, and at the end of the day, the book really could have been cut in half. With that being said, I get it. Bogle wanted to make a point, but if the book was cut shorter, I think he still would have been able to make that point, and it didn't have to get boring after a while. So to wrap this all up, let's get back to my original question of, can Bogle really create a book on investing in index funds in a non-biased, objective way? Well, obviously the answer is twofold. Yes and no. However, even though the book could have been significantly shorter, and the PDFs probably could have been cut in half, there's just no denying the facts. And the facts show that over the years, the index fund has proven to be one of the most successful, if not the most successful investing strategy out there. especially when you compare it to the sheer amount of active funds that have came and gone. So yes, I would suggest anyone to read this book, especially if you're investing in the stock market or wanting to invest in the stock market. Because truthfully, it's not only about investing in index funds, it's also about developing a buy and hold strategy within the stock market and not being so concerned about your short-term losses or gains. So I hope all of you enjoyed my video. If you're interested in reading this book, I'm going to leave the Amazon link down in the description for the hardback cover. And actually, believe it or not, I listened to this entire book twice on Audible. And if you're interested in that platform, I'll leave a link down in the description for you also. With that being said, I hope you have a great day. And remember, investing in the stock market can be made simple as long as you use just a little bit of common sense.